So we're going to be talking about what makes a brand stand out. And I know most of you guys are consultants, so I'm assuming you have your own small business or you're working for somebody else's agency. So in either event, if you guys want to bring leads in and really give them an amazing experience and get them to know, like, and trust you, you have to have a solid brand. If you just are kind of slapping a brand together and hoping that it's working and it's telling your message, then it's probably not. So the reality with branding is that a brand is basically a story, or it's a series of emotions that other people have when they hear your name. So if I say Disney, you get this feeling of, oh, it's for kids, it's nostalgic, it's magical, it's heartwarming. Or if I say Harley Davidson, you're thinking, oh, it's rugged, it's for guys, it's for badasses. So each of those names or those brands gives you tells a story and gives you a flavor, if you will. Your brand needs to do that. So if you have a generic branding, generic logo, generic fonts and everything, or maybe you don't even have any of that, well, I'm going to give you action steps by the end of today's training so you have that and you're crystal clear. So the goal, make your brand stand out. Now, before we jump in, can you guys just quickly let me know if you have a brand or not? I know a lot of people may be on their mobile, so just type a Y for yes and an N for no, and that's going to let me know. And then if a lot of you guys don't have brands, I'll teach you a little differently than if a lot of you do have brands. So cool. Nope, we got a few notes. It looks like it's about 50-50. Okay. Thanks, Silver. Thanks, Duncan. Thanks, Yaniv. Thanks, Jonathan. Okay. C. Okay, so it looks like it's about 80-20 rule. About 80% of you guys have brands. All right, super. So as we're going, they're flooding in. As we're going, I'm going to go basically over the 21 building blocks to making a successful brand. So just keep track of these. If you have a piece of paper, I highly suggest you have that on your side so you can take some notes. And any of these things that I'm teaching you about, again, just write your questions down. Okay, so my goal for you is to discover the steps to create an awesome brand without the usual overwhelm. And by the way, I'm in a beautiful Lake Tahoe, and my 6-month-old son decided to cry all night long. So I'm sucking down the coffee. So if you hear me drinking, you know what's going on. So like I mentioned, your audience wants to experience stories and have emotions that engage them. Now, let's quickly talk about your audience. So that's my definition for any lead or prospect or anyone who has bought from you, a customer or client. I come from a background in Disney animation. I worked at the company that makes the theme parks. I worked for them for a while, and then actual Disney animation, making the movies like Frozen and all that. I worked there and amongst a bunch of other companies. So I really grew up on Disney, and I think that they made a great brand experience. So I like to relate what Disney did. I think we can all agree that Walt Disney was an absolute genius. So I want to relate what Walt did and add that to making an online brand. So that's really what we're going to be talking about today. And I assume most of you guys have been to Disneyland, or at least you've heard it. So that'll be the context for today's teaching. But going back to audience, your audience or your prospects and your leads, the people you're trying to suck in with your brand, they're human beings, and human beings are engaged with emotions. So in other words, if you want to bore somebody, you will not push any of their emotional buttons. If you really want to entertain them like a Hollywood movie, you're going to go out of your way and really understand their psychology and push those emotional buttons so that they laugh, they cry, they're scared, they're on the edge of their seat, all those fun things. And if you're making a kid's movie, then you would have a different set of emotions than if you're making a horror movie for teenagers, or you're making a love story for women in their 30s, right? So all of those audiences are going to have a different set of emotions that need to be pushed. So let me give you a few examples. Nike, their brand, we know it visually from their logo, which is the little swoop, and their slogan is "Just Do It." So when I say Nike, what do you think about? What emotions conjure up for you? Well, chances are it's sporty, right? It makes you feel energized. You want to go out there and run a marathon. And the slogan, "Just Do It," that's empowering you. So every great brand should have a great slogan that, and you can, as you can see here with these 3 examples, they're short and sweet. We're not talking about writing a novel. And the slogan just encapsulates what your brand does for your audience. And when I teach this stuff, I like to say that your audience is the hero of the story that your brand's telling. Your your brand is not about you. It shouldn't be about you. It should be about how you help your audience. So Nike helps the audience get off their butts and go off and be active. Apple helps their audience be creative and not have tech stand in the way. And Disney helps their audience, or the families in their audience, bond together and have amazing, magical experiences. So going back to this, we can see Nike has a very clear logo and a very clear slogan. Apple, again, very clear logo and very clear slogan. And if you remember the old Apple ads, they'd have pictures of like Martin Luther King and John Lennon, all these great visionary people, and talking about how they thought differently, and now Apple's going to help you do that. So they're very empowering. And then finally Disneyland, which is the happiest place on earth. And so all of those brands have completely different sets of emotions and different branding that goes with it. So far, is that clear to everybody? If you have any questions, please quickly type it in. Just let me know. If it's clear, type a yes. If it's not clear, type a no or an N, and I will try my best to clarify it. Okay, got some yeses pouring in. Okay, cool. Looks like we're good on that. All right, moving on. So clear stories and emotions attract your desired audience. Hold on, I've got my slide. Okay, good. I thought that was it. I got my chat panel over half my slide. I don't have my big extra monitor. So I want to restate that. Clear stories that your brand tells about how your brand is making your audience the hero, right? So your brand is solving problems for people. So for you guys, you're solving problems for business owner. I assume most of you guys are doing conversions. So you're solving problems for business owners so they can make more revenue in their companies, optimize things, and hence empower their staff, empower themselves, and empower their clients to just improve their lives. So what stories does your brand tell in your branding to empower your audience to do that? And then what emotions have you defined that every little element of your branding, that's your website, and we'll go over this in detail coming up, that's your website, your ads, your pamphlets, all your literature, everything that your brand is creating should all consistently make sure that those emotions are baked into the DNA of whatever you're creating for your desired audience. And also, let's talk quickly about desired audience. So you're probably aware of this, but if you try to make everybody a potential client, you're going to fail miserably. You can't make everyone happy. So what's working really well these days is sub-niching. So if you can define, so you're saying, okay, we do conversions and we'll do it for everybody. Anybody with an online business, we can do conversions. Well, that's great and all, but I would bet you'd have a lot more success if you're like, we do conversions just for e-commerce sites that are in health and beauty, right? That's super specific. And then if I have that health and beauty site, if that's my company, and I know that you do conversions specifically for that, you're going to be my top choice, not the company that does conversions for anybody. So when you define who your audience is, and then you go deep into their psychology, into what their emotions are, and then what stories you can tell them about how amazing your brand is to really incite those emotions, that's where your branding really starts to sizzle and take fire. So before we go any deeper, let me quickly tell you who I am, because otherwise, who's the messenger of all this? If I'm some knucklehead, then you probably shouldn't listen to me. But fortunately, I am not a knucklehead. I grew up in California, and I was fascinated by movies my whole life. So at the age of 17, I actually dropped out of high school so I could go to the college that Walt Disney founded, a college down in Southern California called Cal Arts. And I studied filmmaking and animation there. And upon graduation, when I was 21, I started working in the industry. And since then, for 15 plus years, I've worked on Fast and the Furious, Iron Man, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Stuart Little, a bunch of really popular movies. And throughout that process, I learned about branding, because each of those movies is its own brand, right? So Harry Potter is obviously a very clear example of what a brand is. And all of those, each story has a different intended audience. So the audience for Fast and Furious is very different than the audience for something like Stuart Little or a Disney film. So that really was my training ground. And as I was getting to the end of that career that I had, because I don't work in Hollywood anymore, as I was getting to the end of that, I realized I had to market myself. And that's where I jumped into this sort of rabbit hole of how do you actually brand. And as I was doing that, I was going to masterminds and marketing conventions, and people are looking at my stuff going, oh man, can you help me out? Can you give me some consulting? Can you build websites for me? And that's what really got the process started. And then as I've been teaching this, I've been forced to kind of systemize what I do for clients, so it's really easy and digestible for people. So when I'm working with a client, I can educate them. And so that's really what you're getting today, is a synthesis of what I've been doing for the last 7 years, which is in the marketing and branding space. So I see a couple questions. Let me see. So Adam wrote, indeed, I just had to talk to my partners about that. Cool. I have to leave in about 20 minutes for a meeting. Yes, Mike, there'll be a replay. So Maddie will send that out later today or tomorrow. I'll let Maddie tell you when she's going to send that out. Okay, so moving on. I realized that when I was working in Hollywood, I was working way too much. I was working 12 to 16-hour days, 6 days a week. I was supervising on some big movies. And aside from the workload, I had an hour and a half each way of traffic. And it was basically exhausting. It's not something that I wanted to do. I got to the point where I was living my dreams, and I was working on all these projects that I'd always dreamed of working on. But the reality of it was a real grind. So that's when I decided I was going to start my own business. And now I'm really happy that I help business owners systemize their businesses and free up their time so they can help more people and have the lifestyle that they dream of. So if most business owners don't want to work 12 to 16 hours a day, and if you're there right now, I understand. I've been there, and a lot of what I'm going to teach you is going to help free up your time. So what I did is, in my consulting practice, I developed the Visionary Planner, and what you're experiencing today is a sample of that. And the workshop that we're starting next week is an accelerated version of our Visionary Planner training system. So it's like the Cliff Note summary version of that. And the Visionary Planner is essentially, it's an A to Z system to get your brand online and make your products. So if you guys are doing one-on-one consulting, you can have an extra revenue stream if you automate that and you turn that into courses and trainings, just like you're seeing here. This is a course and training. So that's really a blueprint for doing all that. I don't want to get much deeper into that. You can privately message me if you want to know more, but I'm telling you this so you know my expertise in what I'm training you guys today. All right, so visionary, let me define a few things. A visionary is anyone with an amazing idea that gives value to others. So if you want to run a business and you're not giving value, you're not going to have a business, right? Nobody's going to pay you just to look nice or be witty or any of that. You need to actually be giving value to people and delivering that with amazing customer experience. So visionaries are entrepreneurs, they're artists, they're writers, they're thought leaders, they're teachers, they're inventors. They're basically anyone with a great idea who wants to help other people. All right, so somebody wrote in the Q&A, I forgot to mention this. We'll go through and look at those Q&A questions, but let's try to use the chat just because that's Maddie's in there and just checking the chat. So chat is better than Q&A. Hopefully that's clear. So a great example of a visionary is Walt Disney. Now the guy started out working in animation, which is why I have an affinity for him, but he went then and he created his own animation studio, and then he started doing live action films, and then he branched off into merchandise products. And the culmination of his career was Disneyland. That was kind of the last big project he had. He was going to do, actually the last thing he was going to do was start at CalArts, which is the school I went to, and then actually create a city. So if you ever heard of the theme park Epcot, that originally was going to be a massive city that he was going to build. So that was going to be the culmination of his life's work, but he passed away sadly. So before that happened. So for today's purposes, let's look at Walt Disney and what he created as the ultimate experience for his audience. So that's basically the slide I just said. So let's look at how he used stories and emotions to attract families to come into Disneyland. So in doing that, because this can be pretty overwhelming, looking at Disneyland and how those systems work and then applying that to your brand. So we're going to break it down into building blocks. So just like Legos, you can snap things in and move them around. That's what a well-structured brand is like, where you have all these pieces, and if you build them strategically, they leverage onto each other. And then if you need to modify something, you can just pull that block out, spice it up, put it back, and your brand keeps staying fresh and relevant for years to come. So as you can see here, we're going to teach how your brand is like a theme park. I unfortunately can't use the Disneyland theme park map as an example. I'll get sued. So we created our own visionary land, if you will. And on the left and right side, you can see there are 21 blocks. These are the successful building blocks to your brand. So we're going to quickly go over these. When I teach this stuff, it takes months. So we're going to just kind of blaze through these. And then if you want to go deeper and have all the systems and checklists and worksheets to build the first 7 of these, which are the branding elements, then we'll go over that. So without further ado, let's jump into the blocks, and we're going to start with vision and mission. So we're going to start by showing how Disneyland does something great that Walt personally designed, and then we'll show the branded online version example for what a small business online would have. So when you go to Disneyland, you enter through the entrance plaza, and it has a little blurb to it. And that blurb is letting you know, it's setting the stage for what emotions you can experience as you go through. And I believe I don't have my presenter notes, so I didn't bring my extra monitor, but it says something to the effect of, here you enter the world of tomorrow, yesterday, and adventure, and have a great time, something like that. And then in the center of Main Street, there's another plaque, which is Walt's dedication plaque. And he basically says, welcome to Disneyland. It's your land. It's always going to be changing, as the imagination in the world is never ending. So will Disneyland be never completed. So Walt clearly outlined his vision for the park and what the sort of the core direction that he was heading in, so that as he passed away, other people could go in and keep the brand alive. And as a business owner, that should be your primary objective, is to make sure that your brand is completely systemized, so that if you want to go on holiday for a week or you want to sell the company, it's going to run smoothly. And you're not going to be the constraint. Here we go. Here's a Disneyland vision statement. Here you leave the world of today and enter the world of yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy. So as you enter the park, you read that, and it basically sets the table for what you're going to experience. And it helps everybody on the staff, which they call cast members, it helps them be really clear on what experience that they're creating for their guests. And it's a really good thing. So in your brand, you want to have a vision and mission statement. So when you have this, it's going to give you a target to hit. It's going to let you have clarity to your audience, so they're going to know what the expectations are. And more importantly, it's going to help your team be clear. So chances are, even though you are running your own consulting firm, you probably have a couple team members. And if they're not all on the same page of what you're doing and what your objectives are for helping your audience, then you're going to have a big mess, and you're going to have staff leaving, and you're going to be upset at them and all these other fun things. So that's why vision and mission is the most important first thing. So let me back up for one sec. The vision statement is the big direction you're heading. It's like the big target. And the mission statement are the milestones or the action steps that you're going to take to hit that target. All right. Next up, we have brand emotions. So as you've heard me say, your audience is made up of human beings that have emotions. And if you don't incite those emotions, they're going to get bored. And in the case of a brand, they're going to go somewhere else, right? They're going to go across the street to the other consulting firms, and you're going to lose that sale. So Disneyland's brand emotions, it's safe, it's magical, it's nostalgic. Everybody knows what they get when they go to Disneyland. I get annoyed sometimes because it's overcrowded and overexpensive, but I digress. So whenever you create any new brand or any new product, you really want to think about what emotions you want your audience to have. And I like to just have 3. If you have, I don't know why, but 3 is a lucky number. If you have more than 3, it's very hard to juggle them and just mentally keep track of things. So in your brand, you want to create 3 core emotions. And these are going to define your audience's emotional state as they interact with your brand. So if you're Harley Davidson, you don't want your emotions to be enchanting and magical and whimsical. That's not that brand, right? So for your brand, for your consulting firm, you need to decide, what are your brand emotions? And that comes back to your audience. Because when you have the right emotions, you're going to attract your audience and you're going to bond with them. So if you're saying, oh, anyone with an online business, we can be a client, they can be our client. Well, that's too broad. So if you go deeper and really say, what kind of businesses or people do I like working with? Maybe you like working with guys in their 50s who have, who have 100 employees. Maybe that's your sweet spot. Or you like working with startups who are in the hobby space. Whatever that is, when you can define it and then really tailor your emotions to attracting those people, that's where you're able to sub-niche and really dominate that corner of your market. Next up, we have Lookbook. So Disneyland has different looks for different lands. And each land, there's like Adventureland, there's Tomorrowland, there's Fantasyland. Each land offers up a unique set of emotions. So when you go to Adventureland, the emotions are, it's exciting, it's thrilling, it's a little scary. When you go to Frontierland, it's down home, it's it's relaxed, right? It's country. So each of those lands is very defined, and in your brand, so you've got the Uber brand of Disneyland, but then you've got these sub brands within it. Well, those are your products and services. And when you have those all worked out, they're consistent. So each brand has, or each land in Disneyland has a different look. Adventureland looks a different way than Tomorrowland and Fantasyland. And that helps everything be consistent, that the colors are consistent, the fonts are consistent, just the overall design aesthetic is consistent. And as you can see on these slides so far, you can see that we have consistent branding. We're all using this blue, we're using black, we've got this distinctive background image, we've got the Rajdhani font, we've got these illustrations that we had an artist create for us. So all of that creates a consistent experience for you. Are you doing that for your brand? Hopefully you are. So in a brand, you want to have your fonts worked out, your colors worked out, your shapes worked out, your design motifs, social media images. You know, what kind of images are you using? Are you using color images, black and white images? Do you have a certain kind of image that you never want to use that doesn't define your brand at all? You know, product images, what do those look like? So when I'm working with clients, they're all over the place. They've got like 10 different fonts. This landing page looks different than that landing page. This slide deck looks different than that slide deck. And that's because they didn't take the time up front to really define what their brand's going to look like and make it consistent. And once you have all that, you put it in a thing called a lookbook. And that's as simple as it's a document. Just like this slideshow, you would just basically take all your information, you'd put it in a lookbook, and then whenever you outsource any graphics to your team, you basically say, hey, all the info you need is there. The fonts are listed there, the color codes are listed there. Here's examples of everything. So that's going to save you a bunch of time. And also in the class that starts next week, we're going to give you a lookbook templates. By the end of that class, you're going to have all of your visual branding elements, and you're going to have them all in the lookbook, and you're going to save it up as a PDF. And then every time any graphics are created for your brand, you're able to just hand that over to the graphic designer, and you're free of managing it. So I see a couple questions coming in. Adam, is that also a branding guide? Yeah, Adam, that sometimes people call it a branding guide or a brand book. I like calling it a lookbook. You know, it doesn't really matter what you call it as long as you have it and it's clear. It clearly demonstrates what your branding is. Okay, so moving on, block number 4. This is a big one, brand hospitality. So when you go to Disneyland, it gives you amazing customer service. Actually, right when you walk in, there's in Main Street, right off to the side is the City Hall, and that's their customer service center. And you walk in, and they got a big smile. How can we help you? And if you're upset because the lines are long, they give you a ticket to come back the next day. So it's really, really amazing. And they don't treat customers like clients or customers, which sounds kind of, you know, formal. They treat them like guests. So they really bend over backwards to make sure that you're welcomed there inside of their brand. Now, an online brand can simulate that. So the minute somebody's inside your brand, whether that's on your Facebook fan page or they're on your website or they're in your email marketing systems, anything like that, you want to make sure that you're treating them like a guest and you're making everything really amazing for them. You're having your support email or your phone number available so they don't have to hunt for it. And Disneyland is so great with their customer support and their customer service that they have books about it. There's these great New York Times bestselling books about the amazing Disney customer experience. Decker wrote, as a marketer, we know consistent brand experience is important. Why is it important? Executives and other teams always ask that question. Okay, good question. Having consistency is important because it takes 7 times. Hold on, let me get a little cup of coffee here. Getting the dry mouth from talking. Your audience, these are studies that have been done, so give or take, 7 or 9, but basically there's a range where people have to be exposed to your brand typically 7 times, but now new studies say, because everybody has ADD, it takes 9 times. So let's say you're Nike, and every time somebody sees your brand, you have a different slogan and a different logo, right? So the first time I see it, it says just do it, and it's the swoop. The second time, it's like a bullseye, and it says hit your goals, right? So in other words, every time I'm exposed to that brand, it's completely different. All that marketing money has been completely wasted. It's like you're a different company every time that your audience that you're paying to attract is getting to know you. So having consistency, it's going to save you money in marketing, and it's also going to save you just leakage. If people think that your brand is completely ADD, they're going to be like, what's up with this? And they're going to bail. They're going to leak over to some other brand. So that's why it's really, really important. And also for your employees, if you're all over the place and you haven't really defined what your brand is, then how can they possibly carry that on when they're interacting with their audience? They can't. So it creates a big mess if you haven't really taken the time. And I know, I have several companies, so I know how hard it is to actually take the time and plan this stuff out. But it pays off dividends massively. So it's something that as the head of a company, you have to do. And a lot of my clients like, I'll just outsource it 100% to you, which is fine. You can get a consultant to do that, but then you didn't put your own magic touch to it. It's not personalized to you. And for your company to really accelerate, people are investing in you, right? They want to know, like, and trust you as the head of your company. So that's why all of that's really important. So hopefully, Decker, I answered that question for you. All right. So when you're defining your customer experience, you want to think about things like, what are your refund policies? What common questions are people asking about your products or the problems that they have and how you solve them? What requests do you get? Are you always being asked to speak at conventions? If so, do you have systems so that you don't have to create a new proposal every time? Do you have slide decks created that you can easily go in and swap stuff out? Like this set, Maddie asked me earlier this week, hey, can you jump on a webinar on Friday? And instead of going, oh, panic, I was like, sure, because I already have this all prepared. So do you have that prepared? What are your special surprises? What do you do if it's a guest? I was going to call them a client. If it's a guest birthday, what do you do? Do you do nothing? Do you send them a card? If you don't systemize that, maybe Bob gets a card, but Sally doesn't, because you didn't take the time to really define what that is. Who's the contact person? How are people contacting your company? Are they emailing you and then your inbox is full of all this just junk? Or do you have a contact person? Or does every group of clients have a concierge within your company? Well, if you don't know what that is and you haven't really defined it, then it's just eating up your time, and your most valuable resource is time. What are your interaction points? Where if somebody has a customer support question, can they go to social media and write you there? Can they email you? Do you have a chat box on your site? There's no right or wrong answer, but once you define what those are, if somebody goes to my site and they leave a message and I want people to go to the support desk, well, that message, if I don't catch that and reroute it to the support desk, I've just lost that client. I've lost getting back to that client in a timely manner, and that could potentially cost me thousands of dollars. So having that brand experience all defined is super important. Block number 5 is desires. Now, this is something that confuses people, so I'm going to do my best to explain it. Disneyland has their whole audience of Disneyland is made up of a mass of people, right? It's very popular. So for Disney to try to please everybody, as I mentioned before, that's impossible. If you're trying to please Bob, he's got different dreams and wishes and hopes and fears than Sally. So what you want to do in your brand is you want to break it up into subgroups. So the subgroups for Disneyland are girls. They want to be a princess for the day, right? In general. Boys, they want to go off on a swashbuckling adventure and see pirates and Captain Jack Sparrow and all that fun stuff. Moms, they want to get that perfect Instagram pic of their kids having a great time. So all the other moms back home in Ohio are like, oh man, I want to go on that family vacation. And dads, their desire is not to go bankrupt, right? If you've ever been to Disneyland with a bunch of kids, you're going bankrupt. It's not cheap. So in your brand, take all your audience and then basically define who the best of those are, right? So you're going to have some crummy clients. We want to find ways to get rid of those crummy clients so they don't even approach you. So when you look at your great clients, who are they and how can you group them into 3 subgroups? So you've heard me say before that 3 is a magic number. Well, for your audience, same thing holds true. And when you break these down, then you're able to have marketing like blog posts or email follow-up campaigns that are really specific to those people. So each person that comes to your brand is unique and has special hopes, dreams, fears, phobias, all of that. You need to define what those are and speak to them directly. When you know these desires, and we call them desires because that's the end thing that they desire. That's the thing that they're hoping your brand is going to solve for them. So that is desire. So if that's not clear, I'll summarize it again, and if it's not clear, let me know. You take your audience of your best clients and you try to group them into 3 subgroups so you can better attract those people and then talk to them once they've come on board with your brand. So Sunila wrote, would you speak? Let me read this real quick. speak if your target audience is kids education in math, science, like the Khan Academy. Encourage children to log into the class and actually master them. How do we balance this distance between kids having focus of learning and overly gamification? So no, let me come back to that at the end. That's kind of a longer question about marketing to children and gamifying things. But in general, gamification, there's studies coming out now that if you over gamify, it actually has a negative effect. So yeah, so we'll come back to that. Maddie, can you remind me to answer her question at the very end? So desires are the end result of an audience's strong feelings of wanting to achieve something or having a positive experience that the brand fulfills for them. And that chances are for you guys, that positive experience is your brand, is your company goes into their site, updates, you know, the marketing and all that stuff, and really dials in so it's optimized and it helps them make money. So that's their desire. And if you can't articulate that in their own words, I did a horrible job articulating that, but you want to articulate that in how they would describe their problems, and then make sure that all your branding, so it's like back engineering, all your branding communicates that idea. If you come to my consulting company, you're going to get this great outcome that I know you're desiring and dreaming about. So big problem for Disneyland, like we mentioned, is how do you manage 50,000 people a day? Well, you group them into buckets. So Disneyland has parental figures, sons, daughters, teens, nerds, and all those people need to be spoken to very specifically. Next up, we have teaching maps. This is something that you've probably never heard before, so I'm going to do my best to explain it. Disneyland has maps, signs, and cast members that educate guests on how to best enjoy the park. So if you've ever been to Disneyland, you know there's signs, like you see in this illustration, you must be this tall to ride. Well, that's really important. So for your brand, as you onboard people or as you do work for them, you need to educate them on what you're doing. If you don't educate them, they're going to get confused and crabby, like, yeah, I'm paying you all this money. What are you doing for me, right? So your job is to really make sure that they are clear on what's going on. Now, teaching map, the way we teach it, it's the big steps that your audience needs in order to accomplish their desires. So let me give you an example here. If we're doing dog training, in the dog training niche, people start out with a disobedient dog, right? The dog's barking, it's pulling on the leash, it's just being a nuisance. Well, their goal or their desire at the end of that is to have a well-trained dog. So in doing that, you need to break it down into what the milestones are. So here's an example. The teaching map might be 5 steps to man's best friend. Or in other words, 5 steps to getting a great dog. So step 1 is admit your dog has issues. Step 2, define what your perfect pooch is going to be, right? So what positive traits you want your dog to have and what negative traits you want to eradicate. Step 3 is learn the skills to develop, to help your dog. So if you don't, in other words, if you don't train your dog the right way, if you don't know what you want to train them on, how is your dog ever going to improve? Step 4, consistently train your furry friend. And step 5, that's where you hit the end desire, you have a great dog, man's best friend. So this is just a real simple example of a teaching map. For your brand, you need to figure out what are those problems, what's the big problem that your audience or your clients have that they want solved, that they come to your company to solve, and then what are the steps to get there? So maybe the first thing is they need a website audit. Maybe the next thing is they need tag managing set up. Maybe the next thing is they need split testing set up, right? So when you can define that logical path, then when you sit down with clients, you show them a graphic like this, and you're like, okay, so where are you at right now? Oh, you're at step 3. Okay, well, the next step is website audit. So here's what we're going to do, right? And you educate them on how you're going to solve their problems. And then when you do that, they're on board. They have clarity. They know what you're doing. And then your value proposition to them is 10 times more incredible because they're like, oh my gosh, I can see the journey you're going to take me on and all the success I'm going to have with it. So when you clearly define your teaching map, you'll be able to stay very focused on what products and services you offer. I know a lot of entrepreneurs, they offer anything under the sun and any new opportunity. They're like, yeah, let's do that as well. And when you do that, you're chasing all these different things and you get spread way too thin. And then that's when you're working 12, 16-hour days. You're completely burnt out. You're not making enough money. And you're like, why did I create this prison for myself with my company? So when you can streamline that, and we go back to the 80-20 rule, and you say, what's 20% of the stuff that we do for clients that gets us 80% of the results? Those 20% of things, that's what you put into your teaching map. So if you're going back to the dog training example, if I also say, well, I could teach about dog nutrition, I can teach about dog grooming, I could teach about dog psychology, all these other things, while those are great, that probably is not going to bring me in the bulk of my money. So I want to exclude those and just focus on the hits or the money makers. So if right now you're like, oh yeah, Mike, you're right, I do have too many products and services, then the teaching map's going to help you really define it. So if you have 5 milestones or steps to get that end result for your client, and you've got other services that don't fall into those, you just remove those. You've completely streamlined your business. You're not confusing your clients, and it's going to be a lot better for you. Block number 7, another map. I love maps. So block number 7 is treasure map. Now, a treasure map, we'll go into the Disneyland example. Disneyland, when you go in, there's signs everywhere saying you are here, and this ride is that way, this ride's that way. It lets the guests be clear on what experiences they're going to have. So for the brand of Disney, we'll just say that their big rides are their treasures, and I'll explain treasures coming up. But essentially, a treasure is any product or service that you're going to sell. So when you are clear on what products and services you sell, like we talked about the teaching map, what problems you solve, well, each of those problems can be aligned with a product or service, which is what I call a treasure. And it's a treasure because it should pack in so much value that your audience feels like they found this box of gold, right? They're like, oh my gosh, I paid $1 to go digging for gold, and I found $1 billion in this treasure chest. This is amazing. And when you have amazing value stacks like that, then that's when they're going to recommend you to their other, to other companies and start giving you referrals. So Apple's treasures start like this, and they ascend. Apple. You don't walk into the Apple store and they're like, "Hey, buy the $10,000 deluxe computer." No, they're like, "Hey, would you like an iPod? It's just $49." And like, yeah, you know what? All right, I'll do that. And then they ascend you to the iPhone, which is usually in the $399 to $749 range. The iPad, about $500 to $800, and then the iMac's $1,000 and up. So they hook you. It's kind of like a crack dealer. They hook you with that little taste of it, and then when you're like, oh my gosh, this is great, they ascend you. So for your consulting business, that might be like a $100 consultation call, right? So you get them on the phone for 45 minutes, you analyze their business, you agitate the pain, you make them realize that they need you, where have you been all my life kind of a deal, and then you're able to close them on higher services. So what are your treasures for your company? Have you defined those? Do you have a list when you're talking to clients? You say, well, here's all the things that we do, and here's what I suggest as your trusted advisor that you start with. So the way I teach it in the Visionary Planner is we have 4 different categories of treasures. The first is treasure 1, that's short and sweet, and that's a lower price point. So that might be a PDF book that you have that's maybe a $10 book that talks about all the different techniques or problem solving that your consulting firm can do for people. Treasure 2 is continuity. So let's say you have a software service that helps people go in and check their SEO rankings, or you have a monthly group coaching. So maybe some of your clients aren't ready for the $2,000 a month optimization package, but you can get them in at $197, and that's a group coaching where you have a 90-minute call every other week with them, with a group of people. And so you're able to still get them to pay you, and you can educate them through that process and try to upsell them to the higher services, but you're managing your time. You're only having a call every now and then. Treasure 3 is your comprehensive premium price thing. So for most of my clients, they're in the info space. So this would be like a 5-module course. But for you guys, that might be the ongoing, $2,000 to $5,000 optimization package. And then treasure 4, that's specialized and exclusive, and that commands the highest price. So for you guys, that might be, hey, for 25 grand, my team and I will fly out to your company. We'll look at all your systems. We'll gut everything. We'll systemize everything, and we'll really get your business operating so that it, blah, 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 blah. So those are the 4 different stages of treasures. And most businesses, especially consultants, only really have 1 or 2 of those. So if you really want to maximize your profits, you want to have all 4 of those. And just like you saw with the Apple example, they ascend people through. So you want to get people with that low price thing and push them all the way to that higher price exclusive thing. So our definitions are a free offer. Some people call this a lead magnet or an ethical bribe. If you guys have studied internet marketing, you've heard these terms. I like calling it a free treat. A treat is like a little bite-sized morsel. It's a sample of all the great stuff that your treasures offers. So a typical example of this would be if you're doing I guess, conversion consulting, then the free treat might be the website analysis checklist or something like that. And then when they go through that, they realize that they don't have any of the main things that they need to make Google happy. And then that you can ascend them into a $100 call or something like that. Now, a treasure, like I mentioned, is anything that you sell. That could be excuse me, Dad. My dad's, I'm up at Lake Tahoe with my family, and Dad's plugging something in behind me. A treasure is anything that you sell. So it's a service, a product, consulting call, anything like that. Block number 8, this is destination articles. Now we're going to speed up because the workshop that we're going to be doing next week, we're not going to do these. We're only going to do the first 7 blocks, which are the foundation for your branding. But I want to give you a good big picture of the end game for you guys for your business. So you need a thing called destination articles. Now in Disneyland, Disneyland's a destination, right? People travel from all over the world to go there. And in order to educate people about how great Disneyland is and why they should invest in this great family vacation, they have brochures, they have commercials, they have ads, and most importantly, they have word of mouth because they give such value that people go home to Toledo, Ohio and go, oh my gosh, everybody in the neighborhood, you got to go check out Disneyland. And that's how it works. So great content for you online, great content is going to create a destination for people, and that goes on your website. So we have a thing called destination articles, and these are basically long-form blog articles, and that shows just like with the teaching map, it talks about the milestones that your company is going to walk people through. So if they come in and they got a mess of a company, it's not optimized, it's not converting at all. What are the steps that you would walk them through? So just like you would have on a call, you would educate somebody. Well, you basically take that, you transcribe it, you have a writer polish it up, and you put that on your site, and you create articles that you can run ads to. They're so great, it creates a destination or a reason for people to visit your site. Now, a lot of sites that I go to, they don't have any content. They just kind of have, like about section and a contact form, but there's no content on it to educate me about what they do and how they're going to make, add value to me and my life and my business. So you can think of these destination articles as a brochure that educates and entertains your audience on why they'd be silly not to hire you and your services. Block number 9, that's free treats. And we mentioned this before. Typically that's called a lead magnet or ethical bribe. So Disneyland has long lines, and that gives a bad experience for guests, right? They traveled from across the world to go to Disneyland, and they're waiting for 3 hours to go on the carousel. They're going to be a little pissed off. So Disneyland did a thing called the Fast Pass system, and that basically lets you go and get your ticket to come back later. So you get it at 10 in the morning, and you come back at 2 o'clock, and you can pretty much walk right on the line. And that makes sure that all the guests coming to Disneyland get to see the biggest rides and have this great experience, and hence go home and refer other people to come. So the Fast Pass system lets people sample all the great stuff that Disneyland has to offer. Well, your online brand needs to do the same thing, and that's a free treat. That's a sample of what your brand has, and it should be so good that your audience would pay for it. So if you're just giving away free stuff that like people are like, what the heck is this? And they're going to throw it in their junk folder, then you're not doing your job. This should be something that people are like, this was really helpful. Now, this is not something that is long. It's something that's very quick and easy to consume. In the past, people would have like 21-day challenges or 7-day email marketing courses or anything like that, and that doesn't work. Typically, a free treat should be a PDF, and that's because, unfortunately, most people are cruising the internet while they're bored at work, and if you have a video or an audio or something like that, their boss is going to catch them. So if you give them a PDF that they can save and send it home so they can read it later, or they read it at lunch, or because it's not making any noise, they can read it, and the boss is in the next cubicle over, doesn't notice. That's really the best thing. So plan on your free treat either being an assessment quiz or something like that, or a PDF. Those are the best. Now, your goal with the free treat is to grow your audience. So if you're not growing your email marketing list, then as you guys know, you're not able to follow up with people. So grow your audience should be your number one metric in your company, your online company. The best, like I mentioned, the best free treat is a PDF. It's discrete access. It's easy to save later, and it can include videos or it can link out to videos. So it's like a rabbit hole. You want to sort of, or breadcrumbs. You want to draw people into your brand and have them do micro commitments. So over here on the screen, we have an example from one of my brands, Modeling Career Path. Modeling Career Plan, and we laid it out like a magazine. So if you open this thing up and you started reading it, it would tell you about how our brand is going to help you make your dream of being a fashion model happen. So that's an example of what you could do. Block number 10 is treasure number 1. So you heard me mention before, a treasure is a product or service. treasure number one is your low price product. So Disneyland, their treasure number ones are the simple rides like the carousel, and then their bigger treasures, like treasure number three, are their signature rides like Space Mountain or Big Thunder Mountain. Your online brand, your treasure number one should be a simple product or service. And typically with internet marketing terminology, this is called a tripwire or a loss leader. But we like to just think of it as a treasure one because it should have so much value. Block number 11 is your social media channels. So Disneyland is able to create mini communities of people. And there's the people that are into the princesses. There's people who are into the retro aspect of Space Mountain. There's people who collect pins. There's people, you get the point. There's many groupings of people in this big massive fan base of Disneyland. So these mini communities, they're very easy to go in there when you know what people are interested in and start up a conversation. And a great online social media group is able to just create the hub or the clubhouse for people to hang out in, and then drop some little conversation starters and then stand back and let the community socialize in there. So as we say, I'll just visualize this. Disneyland has the little girls want to hang out with the princesses, little boys want to hang out with the pirates, and the dads just kind of want to chill out and save money. So what are the communities that your brand is creating? Well, you do that with social media. So when you know who your audiences are, your desires, you're able to drive them over by using social media. So that's the little bus icon. Think of that as a social media channel, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, any of that. You're able to drive, or LinkedIn for you guys, you're able to drive them over to your website where they're able to opt in, give you their email, and then eventually convert and pay you money by buying your treasures. Block number 12 is path assets. When you're in Disneyland and you're on one of the rides, they make sure that the line that sometimes you could be in it for a number of hours, they make sure that it's entertaining so you're not bored. Again, they're engaging your emotion. The line has stuff to look at, it's interactive, it sets the tone, and it builds up excitement and anticipation for going on the actual ride. So in your brand, let's back engineer how Disney does this. So Disneyland people arrive to the park, that's the driving, so that's where you use social media or ads or any of that. It's kind of what you guys are probably doing for clients. You drive them over to your website where you want to get them to sign up, and that's online, that's where they give you their email. Next up, we have the welcome booth. So for Disneyland, you literally go through a turnstile, but for an online, that's where they hit the submit button on a form after they're giving you an email. And then access is where they're actually inside your brand. And so in Disneyland, you're actually inside the park, you're able to experience it. Well, for your online brand, that's your emails. So you get them on your emails, and the emails, if you've done a good job and you've planned them out well, you're able to send people off to different pages and different nuggets of content, videos, audios, podcasts, and all of that. So you're educating them on why they'd be silly not to hire you to help them solve their problems. And then finally, the culmination of that is treasure. So for Disneyland, the culmination is getting on one of the big e-ticket rides of one of the roller coasters, Space Mountain or something like that, and having that amazing experience. Well, for you, that's them buying one of your products or your treasures. So hopefully that is clear to everybody. So those are the 5 main elements of an audience path. And for an online brand, a lot of people, what they do is they just sort of grab templates, or they rush stuff out, and they don't really think about the whole cohesive ecosystem. So here, oh, Maddie's writing about the recording, yes. So for your brand, instead of doing like what 99% of everybody else does, where they just sort of make stuff and end up with this big mess and nothing really is strategic and it doesn't really lead to a sale, you need to plan everything out. You need to know all the different entry points that people are going to enter. So like Disneyland, you can't just parachute into the park. You have to go through the main turnstile. So what is that for your brand? What are the entry points? What are your sign-up pages? And then once they're in that process, how are you educating and entertaining them with your emails and your videos and your educational content? And then how are you consistent? So we've talked about visual branding. Do all of your pages, do all of your marketing, does it look consistent? Or is everything ADD? You hire different people to build different stuff and you didn't really plan this stuff out. So once you have all that worked out, you've got a consistent audience path, which some people call a marketing funnel. I like to call it an audience path, because marketing funnel feels like you're doing some shenanigans to people, like you're squeezing them through this funnel. But an audience path is what's really going on, where you're leading people one by one through engaging with your brand. You're putting them on a path so that you can hopefully educate them and make them not, how do I say this? You don't want to sell them on you. You want them to sell themselves on you. And you do that by educating and entertaining them. Block 13, path tools. So when you go to Disneyland, there's the railroad, and it takes you around the park, and you can stop at each train station. Each land has its own train station. So if you want to go to Adventureland, you get on that train, you're at Adventureland. You want to go to Fantasyland, you get off on the Fantasyland station. Well, what's the equivalent of that for your online brand? Any guesses? Well, it's your emails, right? And your landing pages. So an online brand has to easily transport the audience around the brand, and it has to create a system of different messages that are going to go out so that people can say, oh, I'm really interested. So for you guys, it's like, I'm really interested in website optimization. Well, when you have an email that goes out that says, hey, if you need help with website optimization, we've got a great training video, go check it out. Then they go over there, and then underneath the video is a call to action to get a free consulting call with you or to enroll in your services. That's the key here. So email messages for Disneyland, the equivalent is the train going around. And for you, building these out, that's online, that's email marketing software. So I like using ActiveCampaign. I know a lot of people used to use Infusionsoft. I had that. I was spending $500 a month for Infusionsoft and was very confused. So I recommend all my clients ActiveCampaign. But there's other things. There's Mad Mimi, there's MailChimp. You throw a rock and you'll hit an email marketing software. Next up, audience path pages. An example of that, the software is ClickFunnels is great, Lead Pages is great. I really recommend ClickFunnels because it has a lot more functionality than the other landing page software. But for the Disneyland example, that's the train stations. So let's just recap that. Your emails send people to various places, getting off stages in your brand, and that would be a page that has educational content on it and a call to action to either give you their email or to buy one of your services. And the equivalent of that physically in a real world environment would be the train station at Disneyland. Block 14, visionary site. So you guys probably all have websites. Is your website doing what it needs to do? A lot of people just have really expensive, calling cards is what I like to call it. And if you have your website optimized and it's actually, from a marketing perspective, you guys are doing optimization, so hopefully it's optimized. But from a marketing perspective, it needs to do a couple things. So Disneyland, the website serves as the website equivalent in Disneyland is the entrance plaza. So all the guests that are going to go into the park, they end up in the entrance plaza, and that's really a gathering place. That's where they can look out, see the park, can kind of start getting anticipation of what the experience inside is going to be, and they're able to meet people, right? So let's say my family rolls up and I'm waiting for my friends. Well, they're going to meet me in the entrance plaza before we go inside the park. So think of the entrance plaza as a big hub that gathers people and then sends them into the brand. Well, for Disneyland, the entrance, the equivalent of that for an online brand is sign-up pages or sales pages. The ticket booth in Disneyland, where you actually enter into the park, the equivalent of that for an online brand is the email entry or the treasure purchase, so a sales page. And for Disneyland, the cast members who are working for them, and servicing the guests that are coming in, well, the online version of that is a contact form or chat boxes, anything like that, where your staff is actually interacting with people. And again, as the business owner, hopefully you're not doing that. You have a staff that's managing all that for you. Okay, so think of your website as the hub. All of your other marketing channels should point to the website. So your social media should drive people to the website. Your ads should drive people to a sign-up page on the website, or a squeeze page, as some people call it. So here's an example of my website, and this is the header area. And right when you come, you can see there I am. So you've got a photo of me greeting you. You've got very simple navigation bars up front. If you read the blurb about underneath welcome to my site, it sets the table for what the experience is going to be. And then of course there's authority logo. So if you're like, who the hell is this guy? Well, you've probably heard of Warner Brothers and Walt Disney Studios and all of that. So it's really setting the table. So if your website's header isn't doing those operations, then you need to rethink it. All right, next up, my mom's letting the dog out over there. I'm sorry, guys. I'm in a little cabin by the lake. So the visionary site, when you're linking people in, you want to have social media links. You want to have treasures that they can buy. So sorry, let me restate that. When people come to your site on the home page, typically, you guys probably know this, 95% of people really only visit the homepage. They don't go and look at the other pages. The exception is blog pages or any sign-up page that you're sending traffic to. But otherwise, just organic searches, people are pretty much going to end up on the homepage. So on that page, you want to be able to make that your hub and serve them off to other areas. So you want to have links out to your social media channels if you're using them. If you have ghetto social media channels that have no activity on it, then don't do that, right? Only lead with your strongest stuff. You want to have your treasures that you can buy. So when I design sites for clients, on the homepage, we have all their products and services. So the visitor to the site doesn't have to hunt around and go, oh, I want to buy something, but where do I do it? I want it to be idiot-proof. And when I say idiot-proof, I don't want the audience or the end user to feel like an idiot because I made it too confusing for them. You want them to be able to access the treasures. So if you've got like a membership area or something like that, you don't want them to have to hunt around. You want to have a header or a footer navigation bar that says members login, something like that. And also contact info. So if you have customer support issues or people have questions before they buy, make it really easy for them. Now, a good trend right now is having a little chat box that comes up. Block 15, publishing calendar. Disneyland has parades, live shows, character meet and greets. And when you go to Disneyland, right when you walk through the turnstile, they give you the little pamphlet of all that day's entertainment. Well, that schedule helps keep everything organized. It helps the audience know when they need to, where and when they need to be at a place to watch an entertaining show or a parade. And it helps the staff know when they're going to, when they're performing. So your publishing calendar should strategically define the content, the educational and entertaining content that your brand is putting out there. It helps you pre-plan events. So if you're going to be doing a webinar once a month, or you're going to be going to speaking events or anything like that, you want to have that calendar. Now, this isn't something that you're going to let your audience see. This is an internal tool that you'll use. It also lets you create unique monthly experiences. So coming up in a couple of days is October. Well, what big fun holidays in October? Halloween. Well, if you plan for that in advance, you could start theming all of your social media posts towards Halloween, right? Hey guys, take a picture of a pumpkin, and put that here, or take a picture, if you got kids, take a picture of the cute, adorable costume so our community can see it, right? Because your social media sites shouldn't be just about your business. It should be about your community. Remember, you want to make your audience the star of your brand. So celebrate them and shine a spotlight on them. Another thing, like sales stuff. So maybe Halloween, you're going to do a Halloween special, spooky savings special. I'm going to knock 50% off a consultation call, something like that. So when you do that stuff, you're going to stand apart from all the other brands out there. And you're also going to you're going to add a little bit of flavor to your brand and make it special for people each month to buy your stuff, right? So people love sales. And also planning episodes. So what I define as an episode is a weekly newsletter. Now, some people do this with just sending out an email. Some people do this with having a video, like a YouTube video. Some people do this with a podcast. Whatever it is, you should have a touch point with your audience at least once a week. So if you're not blogging at least once a week, and we're not talking about epic things here, this could be just a quick little live stream. Hey guys, it's Thursday, and this week somebody asked me a question, how do I XYZ? Well, blah, 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 blah. If you found that helpful, get on my, subscribe for notices about these, right? So you don't have to overthink this stuff, but if people get on your email marketing list and you've got like 7 days of emails and then it ends and you don't have any follow-up, well, they're going to go cold. And chances are they're not going to buy from you within that first 7 days. It takes a long time to build a relationship. So if you don't have episodes planned out and you do that with the publishing calendar, and that's one content piece a week, then you're completely dropping the ball. Block number 16 is episodes. So we kind of just talked about that. So when Disneyland was starting out back in 1954, Walt Disney partnered with ABC and said, hey, I want to build this park. And they're like, that's crazy. And he said, well, I need funding. And they said, all right, if you produce a show for this new medium called TV, we'll fund Disneyland. I think the cost of Disneyland back then was $1 million, which is ludicrous today. Can't even buy like a landscaping in one of the lands for that much money. So the show started in 1954. Interesting fun fact, it was the second longest running TV show in history. It ended in the 80s. So you can see, really important. And each episode of that show, each weekly episode of the show, Walt would introduce and say, hey, this week we're building the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, and let me give you a little example of that. Hey, come to the park. All right, now let's entertain you. And then they would have entertaining segments to it. So Walt understood that he needed to create a relationship with the audience periodically, weekly. And that's really what got Disneyland into the social zeitgeist and got that, when they opened on opening day, it was packed from day one on. And that's because Walt spent so much time, weekly entertaining and educating his audience. So are you doing that for your brand? Chances are you're not. And it's much simpler than you think if you plan this all out in advance with publishing calendar, and then you batch out your content creation. We're talking about 3 to 5 minute videos. You can shoot that in a morning for a quarter of the year. So it's really, really easy to do. So your online brand needs to post consistently. Now, if you have a face for radio, then you can do a podcast. When I teach this to clients, I say, make a video. You've got videos that go up on Facebook and YouTube. You transcribe that. You've got articles that can go out. And then you've got the audio you can rip from the video. And you've got podcasts that can go up on iTunes. And then every quarter, you can take all of the transcriptions, bundle it together, package it up as a PDF, and you can put that on Amazon, which is also a massive search engine. So doing this content, it's really going to pay off long terms. So episodes educate and entertain. They sell treasures or free treats. You don't ever want to make an episode just to be a nice person. You want to make sure that you're sending people and either grabbing their email via saying, hey, get a free treat, or buy something from me. And you also want to drive them to your email marketing list. And once they're on your email marketing list, one of your core lists should be your newsletter list, which we call your episode list. And that's just basically every time a new episode comes out, we like Tuesday. So every Tuesday when a new episode comes out, everybody who has ever given you their email, unless they've unsubscribed, gets an email going, hey, I have a new episode this week where I answer the question, how to do XYZ. Next up, Block 17 is contests. So if you live in Southern California, there are a crap load of TV and radio stations that are giving away free Disneyland tickets, and this is just another marketing channel. So for your online brand, you want to have a contest. You want to have a summit or something like that where you're creating a big event that's special. And when you have these things and you're giving away prizes, it goes viral. Now, do you want to have a contest every week? No. But at least once a year, you want to do something, and maybe the contest is just giving away a free consultation call with you. But you want to do something that stands apart from your normal marketing and really bonds your community and drives new leads in. And you can leverage this with a premiere, which we'll talk about in a second. So block 18, we're getting down to the end of the wire, guys. We've got 21 blocks, so we're on 18, so we're almost done. The brand premiere, let's talk about that. Disneyland has parades that create awareness. So for your online brand, you want to have a premiere. And then you've probably heard of launches before, online launches, which are usually a 3-part video series. Those are great whenever you have a new product or service and you want to let your list know about it. And if you guys if you haven't done an online launch yet, it's really simple. You just you make a video sales letter, you cut it into 3 parts, you spread it out over a week so people aren't overwhelmed, and that makes an event out of it. So, and you'll typically get 4 to 10% of conversions for people to buy your product from that launch sequence. So after your premiere ends, you're going to have a decent sized audience list. You're going to have fans who love you, and you should have a solid guest list, aka people who bought your treasure based off that launch. Next up, we have a live event. This is also known as a webinar, hence what we're doing now. And Disneyland has live events. If you go to Main Street, there's the piano player who's playing the little ragtime music. You've got Fantasmic, which is the big nighttime spectacular, or you have the Jedi Academy where kids can beat each other up with plastic lightsabers. It's totally wholesome, entertaining for the whole family. So what are the live events for your brand? So at Disneyland, they have performers captivating attention. And after that, the audience has such a great experience that they run over to the gift shop to buy plastic lightsabers or princess fairy wings or whatever that is. So for your online brand, you need to absolutely have online live events or in-person live events. So you can have webinars, seminars, chat rooms, live streams. And the whole point of this is that you're interacting with people and they're seeing that you're live and you're a real person and you're not this nameless, faceless corporation. So live events help you share your story. It helps you create a greater sense of community because people are mingling with each other, and also lets you interact and get feedback. So one of the biggest cornerstones of what I teach people in the Visionary Planner is to get feedback. Don't just talk at people. You want to talk with people, which is why in this event, I'm like, hey guys, leave questions, right? We're going to answer them periodically. So it's really, really important that you're interacting and having a conversation with and not at your audience. Block 20 is treasure number 3. So we've already talked about treasures. Treasure number 3 for Disneyland are the big thrill rides. And the more thrill, the longer lines. So if lines equated to products, the bigger the product, the heftier the price tag. So that's why you want to start getting people into your brand by paying for the low price product and ascending them up to that high price products. And the higher price, obviously, the more revenue coming in your company. So online brands need to have a signature product. For you guys, that's probably the deluxe website and optimization, or the ad optimization, or the deluxe A/B conversion strategy breakdown, something like that. This is going to command a premium price. It's going to be a comprehensive training or service. Again, I teach a lot to info marketers, but this totally applies if you're doing a product or service. Although you guys should think about taking what you do for clients and packaging it up so that you have those automated info products that you can sell people to if they don't have the money to pay for you to actually do the work for them. And often they get that and they're like, I don't want to do this. And then it basically becomes a sales tool for you to do the work for them. Also, every product or treasure you have should accomplish one specific task. So a big cardinal sin that entrepreneurs do is they try to stuff too many things in, and then it overwhelms people. So if you're doing a service, if you're doing like a big service and a lot of things, break it down into milestones. So, hey, month 1, we're going to just assess things. In month 2, we're going to get your keywords. In month 3, we're going to look at your product optimization, right? Anything like that. So one specific task so people can see have clarity on what you're doing for them. Block number 21, the last block as we wrap this up, is a book. So Disneyland has low price souvenirs, and that lets the audience relive the wonderful memories, unless you're the dad and you've gone broke, then you're like, no more Disneyland. And more importantly is they take those souvenirs home, and what do they do with the souvenirs when they get home? Well, they usually put them on their shelf, or the kids take them to school, and it basically, it continues to market the brand of Disneyland. So for your brand, you want to have a book. Now, a book is really great because it builds your authority. It lets your audience sample your content. And what do you do with the book or magazine, especially a physical one? Well, when you're done with it, you often loan it out to people, right? So that's how your marketing can be spreading around. And with our visionary planner systems, which you've got a taste of here, if you do those weekly episodes, you can package them all together, and now you've got a book. So don't think, oh my gosh, Mike's telling me I got to sit here and write a book. That's crazy. You don't have the time for that. So take your content, take your destination articles, take your weekly episodes. After a year, wrap that up, put it into a book, put it on Amazon, put it on the iTunes bookstore, and now you are an author. Pretty cool. And it's no extra work because these are all assets you've already created that you're just leveraging at this point. So to wrap things up, you now have total clarity on the 21 blocks that you need in order to build a powerful and beloved brand. Like mentioned, the first 7 blocks are what we're going to go into great detail on the workshop that starts next Tuesday. And I'm going to give you, I'm like super geek about making things really easy. So you're going to get worksheets, you're going to get templates, you're going to see me drawing and whiteboarding everything out. So you have total clarity on what those 7 elements are and how you can create them. So in order to build a brand, or once you have a solidly built brand, you're going to get passive income. It's going to build your authority, and it's going to help you just live the life that you're dreaming of, right? Having that freedom so you're not working 12, 16 hours a day, God forbid. So I'd like you to, if you found this helpful and you're like, yeah, Mike, I understand now what I need to do, but how do I do it? Well, that's the class that we have coming up next week. So Maddie's been so kind as to give a coupon for you guys. The coupon code is Mike Sent Me, and that's going to give you $100 off, and that's just for you guys that are here attending this. And there's the link on the page. Maddie, if you could do me a favor and just paste that in to the chat room so people can just grab it. And on that note, I'm going to start answering questions. So I'm going to get out of screen share mode. And we'll go back to, hold on. Hey, everybody. Let me go into Zoom. And I'm going into chat, and I will now answer questions. Let me start with the Q&A because 3 people wrote that. Oh, they just wrote yes. Okay. All right. No specific questions in the Q&A. Okay, so let me go to the main one. Let me go back to where we weren't answering questions. Brandy guy, we talked about that. Sunila, okay, so if your target audience is kids, education, and math, Khan Academy. I don't know much about that. It's interesting marketing to children because you're not really marketing to the kids, you're marketing to mom. So understand the psychology of the mom. Is the mom a low-income mom? Is it a high-income mom? Is it a mom in California is going to think a little differently than a mom in New York? So you really have to understand what products you want to create and who you're marketing to. If you guys don't know about Facebook Audience Insights, it's a great free tool. It's just, if you have a Facebook account, just Google Facebook Audience Insights, and you could probably type in Khan Academy as an interest, and you could see the demographics. So that, and also not only demographics, you can see the other likes and interests that those people have. So that should give you some great analysis on people. Encourage. I'm just reading what you wrote, Zanella. Yeah, in terms of gamification, it's helpful, but you can also overdo it. So gamification really works best when you're gamifying people taking action to consume your content, but having too much gamification in your actual content can just overwhelm people. So, right, so you might gamify by saying, hey, for every module in my training program that you're going to watch, we're going to unlock a badge, and if you get 5 badges, we're going to give you a shout out on our Facebook page. Something like that is a good example of gamification, whereas making them, every little video you have, making them watch it and answer a quiz and not be able to pass the next video if they don't do that, so you can give them points and all that, then it just becomes a real burden for them and for you. Hopefully that answered that question. Adam 1 says so much useful information. Yes, you're getting a recording. I know a lot of people asked about that. Great maps. Somebody wrote great maps and building blocks. Thanks for talking you through this. You're welcome. Off to work now. Cool. Would you speak? Maddie's asking me, speak if the target audience is kids education and math. Oh, that was the question I just answered from Sanilla. And there is the link. So there you go. So any more questions? If you guys have any questions, I am here to serve you guys. I noticed there's a few more things that popped into Q&A. Let me just see. That's just people asking about replays. It's going to be a very popular replay. Any suggestion on branding, construction material, supplier, e-commerce company? Let me go deep. Let me go into your website that you just listed out and look at it real quick. And then I'll come back and answer more questions. So give me a second. I'll go into your site, material, art. So a little slow, deep. So 1 second. It's not loading for me, deep. Material, K arts. Let me refresh. It's slowly loading, but it's coming up. Okay, construction equipment. Well, right away, deep, you got this pop-up, the email capture pop-up that shows up immediately, and that should be delayed because I want to check out the site and see if I'm in the right spot. And before I could do that, this pop-up, and my instant reaction is, run for the hills. So I would do that as an exit intent pop. Yeah, it looks good. I mean, it's clear that it's construction, but I think what you have too many calls to action on here, way too many. You need to decide what's the main call to action that you want your audience, or I assume you built this for a client. So what does your client want from the site? It's probably for the visitor to call them up and start asking questions and getting a quote about the materials. So I would make that the main focus of the site, not all this other stuff that's going on. So whenever you're doing any marketing, you want to make it as simple as possible by defining what the call to action is and then back engineering everything to support that. So hopefully that answered. You're welcome, Silver. Glad you enjoyed it. Okay. Any suggestion, Brandon? That was what we just talked about. All right, guys. Any more questions? We got 26 attendees. I'm gonna start calling everybody out. So Adam S. Conley, let me know if you have any questions about marketing or branding that I can answer. Adam 1, let me know if you have any questions. Amor Cut, I hope I'm saying your name right. I'm sure that's just a handle. Let me know if you have questions. Anaga, let me know. Artem McCarty, let me know. Bouchade Afarej, let me know. CJ, let me know. Dawn, let me know. I'm going to keep calling you guys out. If you don't have questions, that's totally cool. And if you guys have questions about the workshop, let me know. You guys are going to love it. If you found this helpful, this was just a sampler. This is my free treat for the workshop. And yeah, you're going to love it. You're going to get templates. You're going to walk away after 2 weeks having all those first 7 blocks totally mapped out. You may not build them all, like a logo may take longer because you're going to have to outsource that, but you're going to get total clarity and blueprints on how to build all those things. So you're going to find it very, very helpful, and it's far cheaper than if you hire me to do it for you as a consultant. Even not even doing it, but just hiring me for an hour of consulting. The course is going to be far cheaper than that, and I'm going to personally be reviewing people's stuff. So it's a good value proposition, trust me. Okay, so let me see. I think we got some questions coming in. Cool, Adam. Glad I sold you. Yeah, so everybody, the coupon code is Mike sent me. That's going to shave $100 off. And Maddie has put the link in the chat box. I'll just repost it so you guys don't have to scroll. There you go. I just reposted it. So Duncan, let me know if you have any questions. Jack, any questions? Jackie Martin, any questions? Jonathan's Hetzlin. You sound English, my friend. Let me know if you have any questions. Jay Saunders, Karan, Minnie, PK, Rod Villas, Razvan, Sanilla. I already answered your questions, but if you have any more, Sunny, Tom, Whelan, Yaniv, any questions, guys? I love answering questions. Otherwise, I'm going to go get some pancakes at the local cafe. Good to go, Jack. Okay, cool. Red Villas, do you have any example of completed visionary planners? Yeah, go to annarenderer.com. I'll type it in. annarenderer.com. She's a client of ours. Vito La Fata is another. VitoLaFata.com is another example of a client of ours. Vito loved visionary planners so much he became a partner with me in the company. So there you go. Stuff works, you guys. All right, so any more questions? There's still 24 of you guys on. So if you're here, hopefully you're either enrolling for the course or you have questions about the course that I can answer for you. Can't see the links. Okay, Maddie just reposted them to all panelists. Hopefully you can see the links now. If you can't, let us know. So any more questions, guys? Yeah, so those 2 links are examples of visionary planner systems in work. But the first step is getting the foundational stuff, the first 7 blocks done, and that's what we're going to be doing in the workshop coming up. And yeah, so again, that workshop is going to be a lot cheaper than enrolling in the full visionary planner course. Of course, you can still do that if you want to know more about that. You can privately message me, but I highly recommend you do the workshop because it's just going to be fast and accelerated, and it's going to be good stuff. All right, so any more questions? We have 21 people. I'll keep going back and asking you guys individually. None here from PM. Cool. Enjoy your pancakes. Thank you. I might splurge and get French toast. You're welcome. I'm a court. Sounds French. Okay. So guys, any questions about the workshop? If you're here, if there's still 18 people here, you're either having questions, you're wondering if the workshop is going to be right for you. I know a lot of people, that's the main question people have. I can see it works for others, or it sounds cool, but will it work for me? So if you want to know if it will work for you, the answer is yes. These are tried and true best practices for building a brand. You're gonna specifically build those 7 first blocks that we talked about, but I'm also going to lay the foundation for building the remaining 21 blocks. I guess 21 minus 7 is, I'm not even going to attempt to do math. I think it's 14, but if my high school math teacher is on here, she's going to be very upset. But yeah, you guys are going to get total clarity on building the first foundational blocks and then laying the foundation for building the rest of those blocks. And whether you're working in your own company or you're working for someone else's company or you're thinking of starting one up, you absolutely need to make sure you have this. So if you already have a brand and you're like, oh, it's pretty good. Well, my question to you is, can you improve it? Probably. So I guarantee you by the end of the workshop, you will have improved your brand. And not only that, you'll have it organized. So a lot of people have their company and they're sort of like, they're getting by, right? You're spinning all these plates, you're getting by, but I don't want you to get by. I want you to excel. And the only way you're going to excel is if you have total clarity and you have total organization. Those are the 2 things you need to really take your brand to the next level and bring in more leads and convert them much quicker. So having that amazing brand experience is what's going to do it for you. Whelan, thanks a lot from Germany. Hey, Whelan, I'm usually in Slovenia where I live, so you're just a stone's throw away. Neighbor, I like that. Yaniv, What do you think about charging more versus charging less if you don't have a strong brand? Well, I have different thoughts on that. One is fake it till you make it. The other is you got to make sure that you have a very strong value proposition. So the way you really get the value down is you have to serve a lot of people and work the bugs out. So whenever you're doing anything for anybody, you should try to systemize it as quickly as possible and then test that system out. And most people are going to break whatever systems you create. So you want to make sure that your systems are idiot proof, and that's just so that the end user doesn't feel like an idiot as they're working with you because you haven't made it super simple for them. So a great example of this is PC versus Mac, right? Mac is way more expensive than the PC, but it's elegant. PC, I can't even use a PC. I'm so confused. There's too many things. Mac, it's like, do this, do this, do this. So Mac's able to charge a premium price because they give that premium experience. But when you're first starting out, you don't have the elegance and simplicity and the clarity of vision that Mac has after they built it for 10 years, right? Steve Jobs just didn't jump out with the Macs that we have today. It took a long 20-year process to get there. So to answer your question, I would say charge less upfront if you're just starting out. Charge less so you can get people in. Now, don't discount, right? If the average going rate in your industry is $100, don't charge $20 because you're only going to attract really cheap people. And no matter what you do with somebody who doesn't have money, they're going to be annoyed, right? You can give a poor person a bar of gold and they're going to complain that it's scuffed up, right? Hey, there's a spot of dirt on this gold. They're not going to appreciate it. So charge accordingly, but you get to that premium price after you've served enough people where you have the case studies, you have the testimonials, all the backup that you're the best in the industry. And then when you are the best, jack your price up until your conversions start to drop, and that's when you know you find your sweet spot. Okay, so hopefully that answered your question. Adam 1, any other examples other than Disney on making the waiting line for a restaurant less painful? Adam, are you specifically asking about a restaurant business? Because in the Disney example, I was talking about the ride, the lines in the ride. But if you're specifically talking about a wait line in a restaurant, I assume you're consulting for restaurants or you own a restaurant, then the wait line, the best restaurant experiences I've had is where the hostess is there and she's chatting you up saying, hey, how big in your party, blah, blah, blah. Where did you guys drive from tonight? So or it could be a guy, but it's usually a hostess. So they're basically engaging you and they're telling you about the restaurant. Oh, tonight our special is the steak. It's really good. It's organic, grass-fed, blah, 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 right? They're telling stories about the food. And then you can also have the, samples coming out. Hey, here's a little, as you're waiting for because it's a long line because we're at a restaurant, here's some samples from the kitchen, from the chef, blah, 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 blah. So that's how you can do that. Just basically have human beings interacting with the human beings that are coming to your restaurant. Yes, a very popular restaurant. Yeah, so I've just given you some ideas. Essentially, just interact with people. They're coming to your restaurant because they're hungry. So give them samples. Don't overstuff them, but give them little morsels, and that's going to let them preview what all the greatness that's coming out. It's also going to satisfy their hunger because when you go to a restaurant, you're like, oh man, I'm really hungry. And if you have to wait in a long line, that's when you're like, oh, let's go somewhere else. So feed them a little bit, just enough to get them excited. And also, I like restaurants where there's water, like fruit and stuff in it, so you can at least be doing something and talking about stuff and sipping on stuff. Can I apply the lean startup style to this workshop? Yes, this is made for lean startup. So the only cost in the workshop is the cost of the workshop. And you're not gonna get in the workshop and I'm like, okay, now you need to spend $500 on this and $1,000 on that. It's basically, it's super bootstrapping. The only cost in the workshop is you may want to hire a designer. I'll tell you cheap ways to get designers and also more expensive ways. And also we have our own internal designers. I've got Alpar and Tina. So if you guys are like, Mike, who do you recommend? I'd recommend them. So I'll give you access to them during it. And they typically charge like $100 for a logo. So I don't think you're going to spend more than $150 on designers by creating the examples that I'll be teaching you in the workshop. So if that's, I think $150 to have really solid branding plus the cost of the workshop, I think that's well worth the investment. Okay, cool. So any more questions about the workshop, guys? Otherwise, we will wrap this up. It's getting near pancake time for me. Or Maddie, if there's any questions that you have that you'd like me to answer for the 14 people remaining, let me know. Otherwise, we will power this sucker down. Okay, Maddie's all good. All right, so I'm gonna call out the last 13 people here. So Adam Conley, if you got any more questions, please ask. Otherwise, enroll in the workshop, dude. You're gonna love it. Adam 1, any more questions? Let me know. Anaga, let me know. Dawn, let me know. I haven't heard from you, Dawn. So if you got any questions, please chime in. Deep, thanks for engaging with me, Deep. Any questions? Let me know. Jackie Martin, let me know. Jay Saunders, let me know. Karan, Minnie, PK, Razvan, I need my reading glasses on, and Sunny. So if you guys have any last questions, please let me know. Thanks for everybody saying how much you learn. Much appreciated. Thank you very much. I enrolled for a friend. Thanks, Adam. Cool. So any last questions? Otherwise, we will power this down. Great. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Dawn. Thank you very much. So cool. Thanks a ton. You're welcome, Deep. So also, if anything wasn't clear or you want me to clarify that before we wrap up, this would be the time. Any of the teaching stuff I taught you about, this would be it. I'm gonna count to 10, and then Maddie, you can sign off for us. So if you got any questions, now would be the time. By the time I type to 10 or count to 10, so 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. 5, 4. My dog's giving me a look like, hey, it's time for my morning walk. 3, 2, 1. All right, that concludes it. So if you're still on this call, you guys are crazy. If you haven't enrolled, please go and enroll. You're going to absolutely love the workshop. I will over-deliver. If you thought I did a great job here, just wait till you get inside the workshop. So on that note, Mike L. Murphy signing off. I hope to see you guys inside the workshop. And if you have any additional questions about the workshop that come up later today, you're driving to work or something, I wanted to ask about, then email Maddie and she will get those to me and I'll make sure that I answer them before the workshop starts next Tuesday. So your Twitter handle, it's Mike L. Murphy, Mike middle initial L, although I don't really use Twitter. I'm more of a Facebook guy. So you can go to Facebook. If you go to my website, I have links to the social media. So my website is just MikeLMurphy.com, Mike middle initial L Murphy.com. So you can, somebody, Maddie just wrote it. So again, I don't think I've tweeted in a year. I got a 6-month-old son and a dog and 2 companies. So I'm a busy guy. So being on Twitter is not my top priority right now, maybe down the road. So on that note, guys, I'm going to sign off and get my pancakes. Thanks very much for everybody who attended. And any questions, send them to Maddie and I will answer them in a timely manner. So on that note, Maddie, you can sign us off.